Now let's look at how you can pick out the right resistance to be doing your upper body exercises with. We're going to be starting low and working our way up in resistance. So I'm going to start off with this 5-pounder. It's the yellow tube. I call it the spaghetti tube. It doesn't really offer a lot of resistance, but I'm going to just go ahead and show you what you're going to see as you go through this process yourself. And what we're looking for is a resistance where you can be moving away from the anchor and getting right to where you can feel some resistance, pulling your hands back to the starting position, and that you can just get through the entire range of motion and feel some pretty good resistance, especially as you get out toward the end of the range of motion. And that's what we're working on with our first distance. So I'm out here where it's definitely, tugging back at my hands, pulling them back into the starting position. But as I get out here to this end position, I can rock through here pretty good. It's just not offering me enough resistance. So let's go ahead and step on through to a next higher resistance level. Now I could have gone from the 5-pounder to the 7-pounder, but that would have only been a 2-pound difference. Now in combination, the 5 and the 7-pounder come up to 12 pounds, and that would be a good difference in resistance. But since the 13-pounder is the next tube up, I'm just going to go ahead and switch to the 13-pounder. And let's go ahead and see what that chest press looks like with the 13 pounds. So I do the same thing. I step away to where I can feel the resistance, just pulling my hands back. I might even take a little step further into it from that point. And here I'm feeling some, as you would expect, some better resistance. And I can go ahead and I can press on out. Now this is still relatively easy for me, and I can still, beyond my end of my range of motion, still get some pretty good push on out. So this one might still be a little bit light for me. Now as you go through these, you might find whatever resistance is right for you, that's where you need to start. But I'm going to go ahead and try the next step up. Again, I could have gone with the 13 and the 5, and that would have taken me up to 18 pounds. But since the 19-pound tube is just 1 pound higher than that, I'm going to go ahead and go right on up to the 19-pound tube, and let's take a look and see what this does for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get into my press position. I get into the starting position, maybe take just a little bit of a step past that, so I'm feeling some pretty good pull on my hands. And I go ahead, now I'm feeling some pretty good resistance all the way through the range of motion. And I'm not, once I get out a little bit further, I'm feeling some pretty good resistance here. So this one wouldn't necessarily be a bad resistance for me to start at. I'm going to go ahead and see what the next one feels like for me. Technically, the 13 and the 7 would be my next step up. I'd go up to 20 pounds, but that's just 1 pound above the 19. So what I've done is I've added the 5 pounds to the 19, so now I'm up to 24 pounds. Let's go ahead and try that one out. So I get into my starting position, get back where my hands pulled back, maybe take a little step further out and go on through here. Now I'm feeling some pretty good resistance through the range of motion. Now of course at the beginning I'm not going to feel as much as at the end, and as we get into later workouts I'll show you how we make up for that by using distance. And as I push on out, I really don't go too much further out before I feel like I'm reaching the very end of what I could do. So this really isn't a bad resistance for me to start off with, but I'm going to go ahead and try one more. Now I could use the 13, the 7, and the 5 for 25 pounds, or even the 19 and the 7 for 26 pounds. And I could even use the 19, the 7, and the 5 for 31 pounds. But I'm going to go ahead and just jump to the 19 and the 13 pound to go up to 32 pounds. Now I'm not throwing all those numbers out to confuse you. I'm just showing you how many different combinations you have to tweak your resistance level up by little tiny increments. But I'm going to go ahead and jump up to the 32 pounds, and let's see what this feels like. So I'll go ahead and get into the starting position here, get it to where it's got my hand pulled all the way back, take a little step further back. Now I can feel some really good resistance here. Now go ahead and push through. Now I really have to lean into this, and I can barely get that out there. When I get out to the end here, it's fighting me all the way back. I'm not now able to push it any further, so this is a real solid level for me to start out at. I might play around with the next one just to see if I'm even able to do it. Now I have the 19, the 13, and the 5 on here, so I've got 37 pounds. Let's go ahead and see if I can even do a full range of motion through one repetition with this setup. So I go ahead and step on out, and I can feel a lot of resistance here. I'm not even going to try and take that little extra step out, but I know I'm going to have to get a lot of bend in my legs to be able to resist this, to push against this resistance. As you can see, I've got, or maybe you can't see my entire leg here, but I've got one leg straight in back and straightened out, and I'm kind of doing as if I were doing a lunge with my front leg pushed down. And I know I'm going to need all of this support in order to be able to push this resistance. So let's go ahead and do this. There it goes. Okay, so I was able to get through a repetition, and I could do another one. So if I was doing some real high level, like I'm trying to keep it under 5 repetitions, working really for power and strength, this would actually be a pretty good resistance for me to work on with. But for my normal training that I'm going to be showing you, this would probably be a little too heavy. So this is what you do. You just step up the different resistance levels. You get to a point where, you know, you move up to one and you just really would struggle with it. You know, to go back down to the next level. That's your starting resistance.